Welcome. My name is Stan Houston, and the Cowboy Spirit Radio Network is proud to present another adventure with Arizona Roundup.
Welcome to Arizona Roundup with Stuart, Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. My special guest this week is Greg Mangarelli, the Business Development Manager of the world's oldest rodeo here in Prescott, Arizona. And Greg, you haven't been here since 1888, but the rodeo has. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Stuart.
Oh, it's great to have you on the air here, Greg. I think you and I met probably about 5 years ago. Our family had moved back to Arizona and settled here in Prescott, and I was working for True West Magazine at the time, and I believe you were the mayor of Prescott in 2020 when we arrived. And you have been part of this community for a long time. Tell us a little bit about your family here in Prescott and your life here.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. So we got here in 1995, and my wife and I and a couple kids at that time, and we went to work at United Christian Youth Camp here in town. I did that for 26 years, and along the way we had 7 more children, believe it or not. So we
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, I have an amazing wife, so it worked. So we have 9 children. Now we have 6 grandchildren, which is even better. I should have just skipped right to that. A lot more fun, but no, big family. So my wife's a realtor here in town. She's done that for a few decades and is very successful and always supportive. Over the years, I had a friend of mine who was the superintendent, said, Greg, you should be on the school board. And I kept turning him down. Finally, I ran for school board. I think that was about in 2015. I did a term on school board and was the school board president. And then from there, decided to run for mayor. And so we got elected in November of 17 and ran through a pandemic.
Yeah.
If you remember that, but
what a challenge to everybody.
It was interesting. You know what I tell people a lot about being the mayor, there's a lot of great things we did with the airport, bringing in commercial air service and the airport terminal and a lot of things. But the one thing that I always tell them, Stuart, is we had a rodeo in 2020.
Right.
And at the time, J.C. Mortensen was the, we'll have to edit that. J.C. Trujillo was the general manager. And he called me in like March of that year and said, Greg, are we going to have a rodeo? And I was like, JC, look, if it's you and I in the arena and we, sell a couple tickets to some people, we're going to have a rodeo because it's important, as you know, for the world's oldest rodeo to have that continuous rodeo every year. So I'm very proud of the fact that with JC's help and a lot of other people, we had a rodeo in 2020. And then I was fortunate enough to land a job with the rodeo in 2021, and really have enjoyed working with General Manager Jim Dewey Brown over there. We have a great board, a great vision, which we can get into later, and started the Buckle Club, which we can talk a little bit about as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I just learned something about you. Were you a camp director?
I was a camp director for about 30 years, 26 years here in town.
I don't think I knew that, and I think that's a great story. Our business manager here at Sharlot Hall Museum, Tim McGill, was a camp director for 20 plus years, including 9 years out at the Orem summer camp. And my life personally was changed by summer camps. I actually had the fortune to come to Yavapai County and out to the Orem Ranch, that they called it in those days the Quarter Circle V-Bar Ranch Camp for many summers, helped define my life. And I think that's a storyline, though, of Prescott. If Wickenburg at one point was the dude ranch capital of Arizona, I would have to declare right here on Arizona Roundup that Prescott, Arizona is the summer camp capital of Arizona and the Southwest. This is still remains a very strong summer camp community. And I think, so where did you grow up going to summer camps? What inspired you to do that?
Well, that's an interesting story. I grew up in Kansas. On farms and ranches back there, and so that's why I love rodeo and Western heritage, but never went to summer camp. We actually had a little day camp that my dad put on. He was a Methodist pastor at the time, and he had, a day camp for 4 or 5 days out at the house with different activities, but I never went to camp. And so I think it was something that I saw the value in the day camp and went to a weekend retreat one time, but really never when I was a kid. I grew up going to camp.
Right.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it was a little bit of a calling to become a youth minister and a camp director.
Yeah. I think the big thing is I just love to see kids outside, and I mean, it's even more necessary, I think, in the day we live now, where kids need to be outside. They need to be playing with rocks and sticks and in the creek and catching frogs and away from the screens. And so that was one of my bigger missions at that time. And we did a lot of adventure stuff with, ropes courses and zip lines and a lot of different, we did rafting down the Colorado River. And so, just getting people outside.
Yeah, that's I had an experience going down the Colorado River at Orem Camp in 1979 and going down the lower half of the Grand Canyon. And it's interesting you mentioned COVID, and my daughter Christina is now in graduate school at Santa Clara, and she's going to be a teacher. She's teaching 5th and through 8th grade right now. But coming out of COVID, she was up at Seattle U, and my wife Julie and I were like, she's just missed out so much of her college experience. So I turned to Julie and I said, you know what? Christina's going to work at a summer camp this summer. She's like, she is? I said, yep, I'm calling her tomorrow. I said, Christina, you're going to work at a summer camp. And she said, oh, no, I'm going to work as a waitress and have an apartment with my friends this summer. I said, no, you're going to work at a summer camp. And she said, and I worked at summer camps. And she said, okay, Dad. And I said, but I'm picking it. I said, fine. So she picked a camp called Camp Northwestern. Camp Northwestern, Northwester is on an island beyond the San Juan Islands. It's like 2 miles off the San Juan Islands. The island's maybe 2 miles long. And she spent 10 weeks in a teepee without running water. And then she came home for a week and went to Spain. But it was a game changer coming out of all the isolation and the loss of that college experience. And so summer camps play such a great role in letting young people know, and even the camp counselors learn that they can achieve something they never thought they could achieve. And I think that's just really cool that was something that you did for all those years, Greg.
Yeah, well, thank you. It was very rewarding. We loved it. My wife and I. She actually didn't like the idea of it ending. She didn't really want me to quit. But I think the summer after my last summer camp, I bought a boat. So now we spend a lot of time on Lake Pleasant.
Yeah, I bet. And a lot more family time in the summer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we found ways to get away, but summers are always very busy.
Well, we're going to take a break here and thank our sponsors. And we're going to come back and talk about one of the most important summer experiences that happens in Arizona every summer, the world's oldest rodeo. And I will tell you that it's because I was a summer camper here in Yavapai County that I started going to the rodeo about 1970. We'll be right back.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Greg. This is Stan once again, and I'm the leader of the Cowboy Spirit Radio Network, and I just want to tell you how proud I am of the success of this new program. Coming your way from Prescott, Arizona, and the Sharlot Hall Museum. And we are very pleased that as we got this new venture off the ground, we still want to say thank you to Helkin and Horn, the Blind Brothers Blind Company, and Pinion Painting and True Value Hardware Store in Prescott, who were our initial charter sponsors. We thank you for sponsoring our program, and we thank you for patronizing those fine Prescott businesses. And we hope they will continue, and more of you in the Prescott and even worldwide area, we would appreciate if you would think about giving your company a shout out by sponsoring the ongoing Arizona Roundup program. We would look forward to you being partners in this fine new radio adventure.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. And my special guest today is Greg Mangarelli, who's the Business Development Manager at the world's oldest rodeo. And we were just talking about summertime here in Prescott and your career working in summer camps. And we're talking about summer in Prescott, Arizona. And for me, the world's oldest rodeo, Prescott Frontier Days, defines summer. It defines Arizona. And obviously, to me, there is not a greater 4th of July weekend in the United States. And I think it's fantastic, Greg, that you are such a part of it and you bring all that experience, because it is a generational experience. It's an encampment for a week here in Arizona. And the rodeo's coming up here in about 7 weeks?
Coming up real fast.
Real fast, right? Yeah. And so, Greg, let's talk a little bit about this year's rodeo and some of the things that are happening out at the rodeo grounds and what people can expect this year.
Yeah, well, I want to agree with your comments, Stuart. You know, it's an amazing time that we celebrate not just our independence and the 4th of July, but it really is a gathering, and it really hasn't changed since 1888. The purpose, you know, back then was these cowboys had been out in the middle of nowhere working ranches, and it was a time when families and cowboys would all come to town, and of course they're going to show off their skills.
Right.
And yet it was more than that. It was this communal opportunity to celebrate together their way of life and the independence of our country. And it was families coming together, and it was probably a little too much whiskey and a lot of dancing and a lot of things even around the rodeo at that time. And I think it's interesting when you think about the history of that. I was thinking about that when you made that comment, and it hasn't changed. Right. Like we still, I love the rodeo because people who haven't seen each other for a while are coming together, and there's a big party, and we have a lot of fun for a whole week and a big parade. And I just think we have not left our roots of what we do. And so I just am privileged to have a very small part in that history of the rodeo. In terms of this year, to your question, you know, we're honoring women in rodeo.
That's right.
We're tipping our hats to women in rodeo. And I think it's such a great thing. Our leader, Jim Dewey Brown, the general manager, does a great job of bringing in a new event, the breakaway roping,
which I love. I love watching that event.
It's fast paced.
Speed demons.
That's right. They go fast. And so he did that. And so I just think he does such a great job of reaching out to everybody involved in the sport. And I think it's such a great thing that we're doing this for women in rodeo. We have such a great history, as you know. I mean, we're sitting at Sharlot Hall Museum.
Right.
And there's been so many great women who've been a part of our rodeo and our Western heritage and our history. And so we're privileged to do that this year. We're going to have all the same great events that you're used to at the rodeo grounds. And we're selling out. I'll make a quick pitch here. Make sure you go to worldsoldestrodeo.com only, or come to our rodeo office and get tickets. But I'm telling you that they're going very fast. We sold out the last 3 years. We're going to sell out again. And so it's good, yet we need more space. We can talk about that later, but we need more space.
Yeah, you know, I my favorite section of the rodeo grounds to sit in is where I sat when I was 7 or 8 years old, and that's over in L and K and L, which is towards. I like sitting over there. It's great to get a seat in the middle. You can see those bulls coming out, but there's just something nostalgic I like about sitting at the west end of the arena there and watching those the calf ropers and the team ropers come out of the chutes, and now the breakaway, and of course the barrel racers, and got a great, and then great view of all the rough stock. It's one of those rodeos. It is America. It helps define our summers across America. And one of the things that I realized, the years I was working at True West Magazine, we promoted rodeo and we promoted travel in the West. But one thing I know for sure is that the men and women, and it's almost equal, I think, of our volunteers here at World's Oldest Rodeo, and I volunteer with you all, is that it's the men and women in the rodeo and ranching communities, but also community members all across the West, that if without them, this heritage of rodeo and ranching in our West would go away. They give tens of thousands of hours across America every year to keep their rodeos alive. And we are really blessed like we heard at Sharlot, but the volunteers that help make the rodeo happen every year, they're at the backbone of this of our country.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we could not do our rodeo without our volunteers. I think we have some 500 volunteers. These are people, Stuart, that take their vacation time and they come well ahead of the rodeo to prepare during the rodeo. They may not even see a performance, and they're in the back doing their work, and they absolutely love it. And we could not do the rodeo without those dedicated volunteers. And it's interesting to watch the dynamic of those people, the contractors that come, the other folks, the announcers, the clowns, all the folks that come. There's a community even there.
Right.
That's a fraternity that we all just love to see each other, and we pick up right where we left off last year. And there are some really dynamic relationships that exist there.
Right. And is there anything we want to talk about in terms of, I think the last 2 or 3 years, the rodeo grounds themselves, the rodeo arena has been nominated or won some serious awards for the ground that those real expensive horses and bulls and horses, those athletes compete on with our cowboys and cowgirls.
Yeah, we have very important animal athletes that show up, most of them from Vold Rodeo, that's been doing the rodeo for decades. And we have a great groundskeeper. His name's Mike Alderete. He has won, I call him 5-time around the rodeo grounds.
Okay, I love that.
5-time because, to your point, 5 times he has won the Best Ground Award here in the Southwest. The barrel racers actually are the ones that vote on that, because they're the ones that are the most finicky,
right?
Particular.
Sure.
And they should be, because like you said, they have horses that range in price from 50 to 100,000 or more maybe. And he does such a great job. He's meticulous about it. It's not always easy with an outdoor arena, because you're exposed to the elements. You have monsoon sometimes to deal with, and he does such a great job. He takes great pride in it. And we're so glad to have Mike 5-time Alderete on our team.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to take a break here and thank our sponsors. And we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about the rodeo and the rodeo history and where the rodeo is going in the future here in Prescott, Arizona, USA.
Once again, this is Stan, and I have a cautionary tale for many of you who might be in the area. It's kind of a joke in many parts of the world where different places are pronounced different ways. Now, when you read the word Prescott, Arizona, a lot of people say, and it makes sense, Prescott. No, that means you don't live there or don't know there, because we say Prescott, Arizona. And we are giving them a little bit of this. They are truly, in terms of Arizona, the weather is not exactly a Phoenix or Tucson, for which they are glad. Most of the time, it is a mile high in the mountains. So we call it Prescott, the mile-high cowboy city, and everybody's favorite hometown. And we are hoping that this program will help this wonderful town, community, place where people live and make a good business and make a good living, that it will continue to not only survive, but more than that, to thrive in 25. And we thank the Prescott community for fully embracing the Sharlot Hall Museum and, of course, the wonderful program, Arizona Roundup.
Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. And my special guest today is Greg Mangarelli, the Business Development Manager and longtime Prescott resident. And Greg, we were talking about earlier, this year we are honoring women in rodeo, Western women, cowgirls. I've even heard there's some cowboy gals, cowboys. These women have been helping to run rodeos for well over 130 years, and they're at the cornerstone of our success as a rodeo here in Prescott. Tell me a little bit about who we're honoring this year as our Grand Marshal and how women are being honored this year at the rodeo.
Yeah, so our Grand Marshal this year, we put on the parade here. It's I I always tell people it's the second largest parade in Arizona behind the Fiesta Bowl parade. And, we have tens of thousands of people down here, but it's always a big deal. And this year our Grand Marshal is Nancy Shepard. And Nancy was a trick rider in her day, and she's been honored all over the country in lots of different venues, the National Cowgirl Museum. She's in the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. I'm probably forgetting some that she's been honored, but we are so privileged to have her on our poster this year. And she's standing on a horse, spinning a couple ropes. And what I understand is she's the first woman to perfect that, standing on the horse, trick riding while spinning a couple ropes. And so what a great privilege to have Nancy leading our parade out this year as we tip our hats to the women in rodeo. There's so many women. I'd be remiss if I started down that road, but, I think of Karen Vold, who is also a trick rider. And
I don't think I knew that.
Married to the great Harry Vold with the Vold Rodeo Company. And Karen will be in town. She's always in town with her daughter, Kirsten, who runs Vold Rodeo now. And Karen, in her own right, has had a trick riding school for decades. She's been around rodeo pretty much all her life, was in rodeo before she even met Harry. Harry actually hired Karen to be a trick rider specialty act in one of his rodeos, and that's how they met.
Well, I remember as a kid coming to the rodeo, and there was always trick riding in the at the Prescott Rodeo. It was a feature that other things, those entertainments between rough stock events or setting up for barrels, there was always trick riding, and it was a thrilling thing to see. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Nancy Shepard, again, our Grand Marshal, it would be great to have her. She's been at our Old Timers for decades, and we appreciate having her here again. But the Shepard name, while she's not Nancy, not related to the Shepards that we know here locally, Chuck Shepard and his family, but there's a lot of Shepard ladies that have been royalty here in Prescott over the years. And so, we have a lot of women that have been involved in our rodeo, even way back in the very earliest days, even during the war when they were having trouble finding men to participate. We had women who would participate in a rodeo.
Right, and many of our rodeo secretaries who keep all the rodeo men and women straight and in line and pulling their draws. Without those rodeo secretaries, going back a long ways, and of course Grace Sparks here was a force to be reckoned with in helping organize those rodeos in the teens and 20s and 30s. I think that we might not go as long this many years forward without the next time we honor women in rodeo.
I'm glad you mentioned Grace Sparks. She's been someone that I always see in a lot of the old photos. I'm sure you have as well. And she was a great leader and inspired the rodeo back in our day. And, we currently have a president who is a female. Kim Lopez is our president with Prescott Frontier Days. We've had many other women who've been in leadership and the president of our organization. And so grateful for all those women who've been a part of our rodeo.
Well, let's talk about one of the newest events. Of course, barrel racing is still one of the most thrilling events at the rodeo, and I believe it always is the precursor just before the bull riding and helps close out the rodeo. So you wait till you gotta stay in your seat until the end to see the barrel racing and the bull riding. But tell me a little bit about this new event that Jim Dewey Brown has brought to the Prescott World's Oldest Rodeo. Breakaway. I love that event.
Yeah, it's a great event. Jim came to us in 21, I believe, and I think he didn't waste any time. I think it was the following year in 2022. I could be off a year there, but that he brought breakaway roping. And at that time, it was just kind of starting to get into PRCA rodeos. It wasn't prevalent. It wasn't in many rodeos, and I appreciate Jim being a pioneer, if you will, to bring breakaway roping to our rodeo. There was no question he was certainly wanting to bring that because he knew it was a lot of fast action, and you and I were talking off air earlier. It's so much fun to watch because it happens so quickly. These ladies are so talented. Their horses are so fast and they work together. And it's a lot of fun to watch. And I'm certainly glad that we have it here in our rodeo.
Well, I know in my conversations with the volunteers over at the World's Oldest Rodeo is that one of the things that the rodeo that we're honoring this year, not just women in rodeo, but women in ranching, women in the West. And the fact is that a lot of daughters have been growing up roping right side by side with their brothers and their dads over the years. And this breakaway honors the fact that there's a lot of talented women out there that probably go toe to toe with a lot of those calf ropers and team ropers out there. And this is giving them a chance to showcase their skills.
Yeah, no, they're extremely talented. They have some amazing animal athletes that they work with, and I am very excited to see that sport continue to thrive and grow here in Arizona, across the country.
Well, Greg, we're going to take another break and thank our sponsors. We're going to talk a little bit more about the World's Oldest Rodeo here this summer here in Prescott, Arizona. We're going to give people an idea when where they can get their tickets, where they can learn more about the rodeo and the dance and the parade and everything happening this summer at the World's Oldest Rodeo in Prescott, Arizona, USA. Looking for a fun educational outing? Sharlot Hall Museum isn't just a history display, it's an experience. From the Prescott Indians Art Market to Sharlot's Cellar, living history adventures, author presentations, and lecture series, there's something for everyone. Uncover the past and create new memories today. Visit charlottehallmuseum.org to see our full event lineup. That is charlottehallmuseum.org. Welcome back to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook, and my special guest today is Greg Mangarelli, the Business Development Manager at the World's Oldest Rodeo. And off air, we were just talking a little bit about one of my favorite days of Rodeo Week, and that is parade. It's the Prescott Frontier Days Parade. Bar none, for me, it's the best 4th of July anywhere in the United States. And if you haven't booked your hotel room or got your tickets for the rodeo, then you need to take a look at your calendar and get out here for the 4th of July. This year it's July 5th, Saturday, and the parade kicks off at 9 a.m. People put out their chairs the night before. I think, how many people do you think sit out on the city streets of Prescott for that parade? Is it in the thousands?
Oh, it's absolutely in the tens of thousands. Absolutely. You know, certain areas where you have a lot of shade, Stuart, you'll see chairs 30, 40 deep.
That's right.
And, you know, I would highly recommend, if folks haven't taken in the parade that are listening, they got to come that particular weekend. Try to get tickets, you know, over the weekend if they can. Make sure, like I said earlier, always go to worldsoldestrodeo.com. There's some folks out there that are a little disingenuous about selling tickets, and we want to make sure that you get a good ticket either on our website. You can come to our rodeo office or you can call our rodeo office, but make sure you do that. And that weekend, like to your point, so patriotic and so just the town just comes out friendly and everybody's having fun. It starts at 9 o'clock and that's about a 2.5 hour parade.
Yep. And I know that national publications for years, for decades, have listed this parade, the Prescott Frontier Days Rodeo Parade, is one of the most patriotic in the country. You want to really celebrate the 4th of July, and you've got a bucket list. You got to put Prescott, Arizona on that list and come out for the parade. It's a long weekend this year. You can come up here on the 3rd. You got the 4th of July on Friday. We got rodeo dance that weekend. We've got, there's all sorts of things happening all over town. And Saturday, July 5th, is a special day because it kicks off with the parade, and then there is the boot race on Whiskey Row. There's the afternoon matinee performance.
1:30.
At 1:30. There's only 2 matinee performances that rodeo week. One always the tradition is to have one on Saturday at 1:30 and one on Sunday.
That's right.
Following the old timers lunch at the rodeo grounds. And then after, I want to just plug something at Sharlot Hall this year. Last year we brought Sharlot Hall's 1926 Durant Star Car out of storage and into the parade. This year, Charlotte's car's back in the parade. We have also going to have a 16-foot passenger wagon, and probably hold 12 to 18 people, will be pulled by Pershons. And we're going to roll out our farm wagon from our own collection into the parade this year. And so we are, and look for us to have more entries next year. We're also probably have a couple outriders in the parade. So we're bringing the West. Sharlot Hall's was a ranch girl, and we're bringing the West from Sharlot Hall Museum into the parade, and I hope everyone will look for us out there. And I love the parade. It is just, but we are talking about our Grand Marshal and Nancy Shepard. She is featured in the poster and Wild Rag, just honoring women in the rodeo, and Sarah Phippen, the granddaughter of George Phippen, the great Western artist from Prescott, Arizona, who helped found the Cowboy Artists of America. Sarah is our featured artist this year and has painted this beautiful painting. It's been adapted into Wild Rag, and Sharlot Hall Museum is partnering with the Prescott Rodeo Foundation this year, and we are going to auction off that painting to help support the Prescott Frontier Days Foundation's charities. It's going to be 4 to 6 o'clock. It's free to the public here at Sharlot Hall, and it's going to be a special afternoon.
The museum's free all day, though, right?
The museum is free all day. Something we do every year, every parade day, every Saturday. If you've come up to Prescott, actually the 4th of July, we're going to have some special events here. It's half off on the 4th, but Saturday, July 5th is free day here at Sharlot Hall Museum, and we hope everyone who has finished enjoying the parade has a little lunch to walk on down from the plaza to Sharlot Hall Museum and come learn about our great history. We do have on display a little exhibit on the first champion of the world's oldest rodeo in 1888.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing that we still have that prize. You know, there's a few different things, Stuart, that you had to qualify to have an official rodeo. You had to advertise it. You had to have contestants who paid to get into the contest. You had to have a prize. You had to have people who paid to attend the event. And we did all those in 1888, and I'm so proud that we have that prize still here at Sharlot Hall Museum. We have a replica over at the rodeo office as well, but that reminds us of our heritage and how we got started back in 1888. I wanted to circle back to, you were talking about the Saturday, July 5th. And you mentioned this event that you're going to have here at Sharlot Hall Museum there in the afternoon, which is about the only couple hours that day that there's nothing else going on. And I'm excited to be a part of that. We're going to auction off that original painting.
That's right.
That Sarah did.
That's exactly right. People can come out and meet Sarah, come out to the museum and meet her, see the original painting, and the auction's going to happen about 4:45, 5 o'clock that afternoon, and all the proceeds there go out to help support the charities of the Prescott Frontier Days Foundation. And it really is a part of that great legacy, this tradition of the annual poster that'll be for sale out at the rodeo during the every day at every performance. People who come out to Sharlot Hall and go to the evening performance and they're inspired, they can buy a copy of that poster out there. And then if they're interested in learning more about rodeo, that's an interesting thing happening right now here in Prescott. We have the Western Heritage Center downtown, which has a beautiful rodeo exhibit that's put together by Danny Rogers, who's the PFD's rodeo historian. And he's been working very hard with a lot of other volunteers to help put together a small rodeo museum out at the rodeo grounds. And here at Sharlot Hall Museum, we're going to have an exhibit that'll be up that summer that will also be featuring some of our clothing out of our collection, Western and rodeo attire that people can come see. So people come to Prescott this year for the rodeo. There's a lot of places that they can experience it, learn about its history and heritage, and then go out and experience the action, the non-stop action of the world's oldest rodeo. Jim Dewey Brown and the volunteers and Vold Rodeo Company. When it starts, when that grand entry comes in, the action does not stop for 2.5 hours. I mean, it is, hold on to your seat.
I have the privilege of being in the grand entry, but I have to tell you, once we leave the arena, every time Randy Corley opens with the prayer and then we have the national anthem, I get goosebumps.
Oh yeah.
Every time. I don't anticipate it, but it always happens. I'm always so proud of Randy Corley and James Horcasitas, who helps him out. What a legendary announcer Randy is. He does the National Finals Rodeo most every year. But I had a couple things I wanted to mention for your listeners that might help them when they get to town. Just a couple inside hacks right here on your show. So if you find yourself here and you don't have tickets, know that you can go to the rodeo ticket office day of, and we sell standing room only.
That's fantastic.
So if you are short a ticket or whatever that the case may be, know that we don't sell a lot of those. So you want to get there early, but there is that opportunity. And then secondly, we're doing a bus shuttle this year, Stuart, and we've tried to help just with traffic and convenience. And, sometimes people are drinking even before they get to the rodeo, which is fine, but we want everybody to be safe. And so we do work with this year public transportation, actually PUSD, the school district here in town. And they're going to start out at the Residence Inn that's kind of out towards Trader Joe's. And they're going to have a stop there, and then at the mall, and then at Spring Hill Suites. And so if you find yourself downtown, you could go over to Spring Hill Suites, and they start at about 5 o'clock, those shuttles, and you could grab a shuttle to and from, and that would just save yourself a lot of headache of being in traffic and making sure everybody's safe.
Well, I think that's great. I was up at the Cheyenne, their Frontier Days a few years ago, and they have that bus shuttle system. I think that's fantastic. And fewer cars, go out and have a good time, shuttle back, and then head back down to the plaza and enjoy everything you can do here in Prescott during rodeo week and make it a safe night.
Yeah. Well, again, I wholeheartedly agree with you. The rodeo and our summer festivities here over the 4th of July are legendary, world class, and speaking of that, we have 40-some states represented every year at our rodeo.
Is that right?
People come from 40 states and 14 countries last year, and I expect the same. And it's interesting. I don't know if it's the notoriety of the world's oldest rodeo, the legendary parade that we have downtown, whatever it is. I think it has to do with our heritage here, our Western heritage, and just that experience that we deliver every year. But I understand why the state understands the impact we have and gets behind us as much as they do, because of the reach we have nearly across the whole country here, and 14 different countries that come to our rodeo.
Right. And those rodeo cowboys and cowgirls want to come here and win that buckle. That's a prize to win, be a champion at the world's oldest rodeo.
No, that's right. I was just up in Red Lodge, Montana recently. I went to see their arena. They have a 4th of July rodeo. There's a lot of rodeos up in that area, Cody, Wyoming, Red Lodge, and some other places up in the Northwest. And that's where cowboys hang out a lot over the 4th of July. But they make the trek down here, Stuart, because they want that buckle. And I've talked to many of them, and that really is something special for them to come down and win a buckle at the world's oldest rodeo.
Well, Greg, it's been great having you on the show this week. And remind people right now, if they want to learn more about this year's rodeo schedule, if they want to get tickets, where do they go?
Yeah, go to worldsoldestrodeo.com. That's plural, worldsoldestrodeo.com. You can get tickets there. You can find out what you need to know ahead of the rodeo, all the other festivities, the parade, etc. It's all right there on our website.
Well, thank you, Greg. And as J.R. Bonner would say, tell them Junior sent you.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and thank you very much for being a part of Arizona Roundup. And perhaps we'll see you at the rodeo. And again, Arizona Roundup is brought to you by the Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. And it's one of those key places as perhaps you're taking a trip out west. You know, coming out west and seeing all the things there gives you a new appreciation of just what it might be like to have the Western civilization that we all want to preserve, that there's a part of the Western tradition that will help us do just that. So we hope that you'll stay in touch and be in touch with us. And thank you very much. All the best and blessings to you. And bye for now.